Hey guys, in this video we're going to look at an intro to Photoshop. First we're going to look at what the interface looks like and to what extent that interface kind of mimics all of the other Adobe software. And so once you understand the interface, you can get a feel for all the other interfaces that we're going to be looking at throughout the class. We're going to look at one of the most important concepts in Photoshop and in Adobe in general, which is layers, and how we can stack images on top of each other to make them integrate one another. And specifically, there's a subset that's called adjustment layers. And adjustment layers are the ones that you can affect the colors or the saturation or the hue of a particular layer. We're going to look at filters, how we can have effects on top of images. We're going to look at brushes, how we can paint, how we can erase. We're going to look at transforms, how do we manipulate and sort of distort an image. We're going to look at the smudge and the clone stamp tool, how do we make fine-tune adjustment. And finally, we're going to see how we make a GIF. Okay, so once you have the Creative Suite, you click on Photoshop, and you have Photoshop that opens here. Our goal is to integrate the figure of an individual on the background that is not related. How do we make those two coexist? So I'm going to start by opening up a file. And we have the Amazon rainforest, and we have some dude on some stool. I'm going to call the dude Jake. Let's open up the background. It's going to be the Amazon rainforest. Okay, so this is the standard Photoshop view. If you don't have this, you go to Window, Workspace, Essentials, and it should go back to this particular view. On the left-hand side are all the tools that you can use with Photoshop. And all of the particular icons that have a little notch on the bottom right, that means you can hold-click and you can get to different versions of the tool. Okay. On the top are all the parameters for the tool that you're actually using right now. So this is the Move tool, and these are the parameters for the Move tool. This is the eyedropper. These are the parameters for the eyedropper. This is Smudge. These are the parameters for Smudge. So every time you pick a tool, you can change how it behaves at the top. On the right-hand side are additional panels. The bottom one is going to be the most important. It's the Layers panel. This is where we're going to put all the different layers that we work on, which will ultimately compose our image. And then at the top, I have the History panel. The History panel keeps track of everything that I'm doing and allows me to go back if I've messed up. So for example, I click the brush tool here, and then I'm going to draw. I realize that it's not such a nice drawing, so I'm going to go back to the last step where I didn't mess up, which is Open. So I click on Open, and bam, I'm back to the step. Cool. So left, tools, top, parameters for tools, right, history, and layers. You can have whatever you want actually here. I like to have history, but having layers is important. Okay. So now we have the rainforest. Let's get Jake. Click Open. Open the image, and now we have Jake. Sweet. First step is how do I get Jake from this image to this image. To do that, I need to select it. So I go to the Select tool, the Marquee tool, and I'm going to select, hold, get to the rectangular, select everything, and then Edit, Copy, go to the background, Edit, Paste. Bam, Jake is here. And you see on the right that it added Jake as a layer. So first I can double click on the layer and give it a name. I'm going to call it Jake. The little eye that you see here toggles the visibility on and off. Now the cool thing about layer is I can again draw on it, and if I mess it up, it only affects Jake's layer. It doesn't affect the background. Okay, let's go back to before I did the brush and see how we can integrate Jake better inside the forest. So first, obviously, we need to get rid of the white. To get rid of the white, we need to select the white and then delete it. The Marquee tool is the tool to select it. So we're going to select a part of it, and then hit delete or return, select another part, select another part. It's not going to be a super like sustainable solution. There's another solution for selecting objects, which is the lasso tool. The lasso is just kind of like you select it and then it follows the cursor. So it's very like freehand. It's going to be a little bit complicated if we want to get too close and really get like the outline of Jake. So I'm going to press Command plus or Control plus and zoom in. And I'm going to select the magnetic lasso. The magnetic lasso kind of like follows-ish the outline, you see. And now if I click delete, it's not quite perfect, right? So I'm gonna go back to my history, go back to deselect, and I'm gonna use the magic wand, because the magic wand selects all the pixels that have the same color as the one that you've just clicked. So if I click right here and then hit delete, it deleted all the purely perfect white pixels. You see there's still a bunch like all around the trousers and stuff. It's not that nice. So what I'm going to do instead is go back and I'm going to set the tolerance at the top to be 20, which means select all the white pixels, which have the value 255, 255, 255, and all the pixels within 20 of that value. So all the pixels up to 235, 235, 235. So now I click it again, I delete it, and it looks much nicer already. Okay, let's dive a little bit further. Get this guy, delete it, get this guy, get this guy, this guy here, be a little bit there as well. Whoa. This part is a little bit too bright. This part here. The laces. Yep. Okay. That's a really intense shoe, so let's get rid of this as well. Yep. These are not hiking shoes, but it's fine. Jake's good. Sweet. Now we have the problem that, oh, goodbye. Now we have the problem that by deleting the sort of like bright outline, we also deleted the stool itself. So to fix that, one way to do it is to use the clone tool, or the clone stamp. So basically the clone stamp takes a section of an image and then duplicates it somewhere else. To do that, the first part is pressing the Alt key. And the Alt key says this is the source of the clone. So this is the zone that's going to be copied. And if I go up, you see how like the image moves similarly? And it copies the zone exactly as I want it. So let's put it like there. Cool, close enough. Let's do the same for this guy. Maybe a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna make this guy like 17 pixels. Yeah. Select the source and move it a little bit. And here it is. And again here, press Alt, select the source, move it, and here it is. Okay. When we zoom out, it becomes close enough. Cool. Jake's happy. The problem with Jake right now is that his light conditions do not match the light conditions of the forest, right? So what we're going to need to do is to add, to change the vibrancy of the colors or the lightness of the colors in order to make it match a little bit better. To do that, we're going to go to Layer and add a new adjustment layer. So these are special layers that apply to another layer in order to modify things like brightness, levels, vibrancy, hue, and so on and so forth. Right now I'm going to choose hue and saturation. And I'm going to call it Jake modifying layer. And now we can change a couple of things like Oh, wait, but it changes the whole forest. This is not what we want. What I want to do, I don't want it to apply to all the layers in the project. I just want it to apply to the layer behind me, below me. So I'm going to click this icon. This icon right there, it's going to make a little arrow appear here on the Layers tab. It means now we're just affecting the layer below us. So let's try it again. Okay, now we have crazy saturation, crazy desaturation. It's a little bit better. So let's change a little bit less saturation, maybe a tiny little bit greener, not that much. Do you want it darker? Yeah, let's do it a little bit darker. Cool, okay. So subtle, but it does make a little difference. Sweet, now I have my layer that's applied to Jake. Now I want to put it on the ground. So let's move it. I want to put it on the ground, I want to move it, and I want to make it a little bit smaller so that it fits the size of the scene. Let's do this by pressing Command T or Control T. And that activates, haven't got an error message because I haven't selected the right layer. So I select Jake's layer, press Command T or Control T, and I'm gonna make Jake a little bit smaller. How small should he be? Like this, maybe? Yeah. And put it down here. Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah. Sweet. I click the check mark, and now I have Jake on the foreground. Maybe actually, do we want to put it like in the background, like way out there? Oops. Yeah, let's put it in here. This toolbar, great. He's having a great time. Okay, now it's getting a little bit better. One thing that still bothers me is the outline of Jake is still kind of harsh. And so we would need to make it a little bit more smooth in order to actually match inside the picture. So to do that, we're going to use the smudge tool on the left. Click on the smudge tool, and it's going to soften the edge of an image. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, zoom in more, zoom in more. And so if you see what I'm going to do, bam, smudges the whole of Jake. It's not actually what we want to do. What we want to do is just do it on the side. Just to like soften a tiny bit what's going on. Up. This is not done very, very professionally. If you wanted to do it very professionally, you would need to spend a lot more time than I am right now by picking a smaller brush size and going really, really, really up close to the pixels. Doing something like this, right? This is still even too big. Let's see how like we managed to make it a little nicer. What we want to get rid of is this like high contrast section between the background and Jake himself to make them blend within each other. I'm sure that Jake always wanted to blend with the Amazon forest. Okay. Cool. Let's do it very roughly here. And then there as well. And a little bit like, yeah. Cool. Okay, which makes me realize a lot of this is way too intense. But I would let you do it at your own pace. Okay. Now Jake is a little bit better integrated. What he still needs though is a shadow. So to make a shadow, we're going to make a copy of Jake, we're going to make it all black, and then we're going to twist it, put it on the ground, and make it a little bit transparent and blurry in order to make it look better. So I'm going to do right click here, I'm going to do duplicate layer, I'm going to call it shadow, click OK, and I'm gonna put it down below Jake. And then we also see that our layer sort of like lost the link, like the little arrow left. So I double click on here to show the values again, and I bind it to Jake once again. Cool. And then I'm gonna shut this one off, shut this one off. Now I just see the shadow. So I wanna make everything that Jake is completely black. So to do that, I'm gonna select everything that is not Jake and select the inverse. So I select all of this part, and then when I press Shift, you see a little plus that appears next to my magic wand. That allows me to select all the other sections. Up. Oops. Okay. Up. Cool. Now I'm going to do right click, select inverse. And now I've selected everything that is Jake. I'm going to go on the brush tool, and brush tool has two kind of, any brushes have two modes. They have the size, which govern how big the tool should be. You make it like, well, yeah, this is like 1,000 pixels, we don't see it. 400 pixel, super big, 50 pixels, a little smaller. If I start painting here, you see the hardness of the brush. The hardness is the second part, which is here in percent. Very hard brush means that the edge is going to be very, very obvious. A low hard brush is going to be very soft. So for now, I'm just going to color everything. Then I'm going to select the magic wand, click in the middle, and now I just have my image. Sweet. Let's rotate it, move it down. Oh, kind of forgot a little part here, but we'll do it later. And let's see what it looks like if I put Jake back. Okay, so I do Command T again. No, what is it? I do Command T again, and then I can select, move it a little bit closer. And when I resize it, it keeps the aspect ratio. I want to press Shift so that I can change the aspect ratio and make it like, yeah, sitting there nicely. Cool. And press the check mark to validate. And then I'm actually going to use the brush tool with a lot of hardness, small pixels, like 9 pixels, just to like, oh no, it's too big. Let's do maybe 2-3 pixels. Crazy. Small. Yeah. Oh, going too far down. Yeah. Okay. That's sweet. Still too big. Let's do what? Like 4 pixels. Yeah, 4 pixels seems okay. Okay, close enough. Okay. Still a very harsh shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the opacity and make it a lot more transparent. It looks like it kind of matches the shadows in the background, maybe a little less. Yeah, like this. And then the outline is still very, very rough. So to make it a little bit nicer, I'm going to go to filters. There's a bunch of like filters we can explore. The one that I want in particular is a blur one. Gaussian blur is really the default blur. And you see now, if you mess with the radius of the blur, small radius means very, very sharp. Big radius means very, very blurry. So I'm going to stick around like 2.5. 2.5 looks kind of nice. Yeah. Cool. And then it looks like Jake is sort of like shot in with like front light, even though the rest of the forest has oblique shadows. So like on the right hand side, there's kind of like harsh-ish shadows. And I'm going to add that to Jake as well. So to do that, I'm just going to put a bunch of black on a layer on top of Jake. So I click on Jake, and then I click on New Layer, a little plus at the bottom. And that layer is only going to be for drawing on Jake. So I'm going to make it not too big. Maybe, yeah, let's see. Very big, but with a low hardness. What that means is that I can just have like, yeah, small outlines like this. Okay, it's already a little better. And then for more details, we can have these settings that sort of govern how two layers interact with each other. And if we go to like, overlay is too much, soft light is kind of like a little bit nicer. Hard light is too much. Okay, let's do soft light. Okay, so this is with soft light, this is without. Yeah, definitely looks a little bit nicer. Okay, cool. Jake is happy in the Amazon. Amazing. What I'm going to do now is save, because I haven't saved so far. I'm going to save it on my computer and call it Jake Happy in Forest. Cool. Click OK. Jake is happy in the forest. Everything is well in the world. The second part now is how do we actually make a GIF? To make a GIF, we need to animate it. To animate it, we need to show a timeline. So we go to Window, click on Timeline, create a video timeline. Now we see all the possible animations for our possible layers. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to clean up the project a little bit, because you see how this layer here, it's kind of like it's related to Jake. It should be the same thing, but it's two different layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do right click and I'm going to do merge down, which means like merge with the layer below you. It merges, and now these two layers are the same one. Cool. Now I'm going to open up the layer in Jake, and I'm going to add keyframes. Keyframes are specific moments in an animation where you want to have a given position or opacity or scale or any sort of value for any sort of attribute. And so let's say at frame number 10, I'm going to add a keyframe. I'm going to say at frame number 10, Jake should be here. And frame number 1 and 10, Jake should actually be way out here. And then at frame number 20, Jake is going to go back, right? Is it maybe a little bit lower? Yeah. Yep. Cool. And so now, if we reduce our animation, we make it all the way to here, we get back to the beginning. Jake leaves, and he comes back. Right. Oh, it doesn't go all the way. So let's go a little bit further. He comes back. Cool. Leaves, and he comes back. Actually, maybe you want to start in which Jake is at the very bottom, like here, so that we can have an animation where Jake goes all the way out and then comes back from below. Woohoo! Cool. And then at this position here, we're going to add another keyframe. We're going to say, well, actually, at this point, I'm going to click on another keyframe to edit. I want Jake to stay wherever he is. I want him to be there, so he can chill a little bit in the forest. And then we play again. Jake chills, and he leaves. Play again, Jake chills, and he leaves. Sweet. But it would work even better if we got rid of the shadow as well, right? So for the shadow, we're actually going to change the opacity. We do the same thing, we open, and we see at this point, this is when Jake starts to leave, so we're going to add the opacity. This is where Jake arrives, and so when he's not in the picture, I'm going to add another keyframe, and I'm going to say I want the opacity to be at 0. And when Jake is completely gone, I also want the opacity to be at 0. So I click on the keyframe, add a new keyframe, set the opacity to 0. Now let's see how the shadow behaves. Up. Woo! Cool. Jake arrives, he leaves, no trace. Amazing. And now, how do we finally export this? We're going to click on File. Instead of doing Export, we could do Export as PNG if we wanted to have a regular picture. But we're going to do Save for Web. Save for Web opens up a new window which allows us to save a GIF. And then saving that GIF, we can preview it at the bottom here. We can say play, check shows, and he launches, comes back, and he launches. Sweet, looks like it works. It's a little bit too big for my taste right now. Like 1920 by 1200 means that it's going to be about like 4 megabytes. That's too much. So let's do half of it and put it at 600. Cool. And we're going to save it. And we're going to call it Jake Happy in Forest.gif. I click save. And I go to my desktop. And I find Jake Happy in Forest. Jake goes, he's happy in the forest, and he leaves. Cool. So this is what we've done. We looked at the interface of Photoshop. We looked at the layers, how you can stack them, how they change in order, what they allow us to do. Adjustment layers that allow you to change particular color quality on each of the layers. We looked at filters, specifically like the blur filter, but there are a lot more filters that I encourage you to look into. Brushes, what size means and what hardness means. Transforms, when you press Ctrl T, you can start transforming a particular layer. The smudge and the clone stamp tool are tools that are useful for just like tiny little adjustments. And finally, how do we make a GIF by using the timeline window.